Okay, so welcome to our deep dive today. We're heading out west, but like way back in time.
Westward ho?
Yeah, exactly. 1857 Utah territory with Netflix's new show, American Primeval. I actually managed to get my hands on an early review.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, and it seems like this show's, well, it's going to be a wild ride. Like, forget those romanticized cowboy movies.
Oh, yeah.
This is more like, Cormac McCarthy territory.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, real gritty, raw, unforgiving. That's the vibe I'm getting.
The review, actually, the first thing that jumped out at me was it uses the word brutal to describe the violence in the show. And that kind of got me wondering, like, is it just there for shock value, or is there, like, a deeper meaning to it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And the review does say that the violence, it kind of reflects the culture of the time, Like, back then, survival was a constant struggle, not just against nature, but also against other people.
Yeah, true. It is set during the Utah War, right? What was that all about again? I feel like that's not a period we really covered in depth in school.
Yeah, the Utah War is kind of one of those forgotten chapters in American history, but it's actually a super interesting clash of cultures and power dynamics. So you had Brigham Young and his Mormon followers. They were establishing their own territory in Utah, and obviously the U.S. government wasn't too thrilled about that.
It's their land, sort of.
Exactly. So they sent in the army, and you had this tense standoff, skirmishes, a real power struggle.
Wow.
And, during that time, law and order were pretty much like non-existent in that area. So yeah, it sounds like American Primeval is really capturing that sense of volatility.
Wow, yeah, like a total pressure cooker situation. And then you have these main characters, Sara Rowell and her son Devin. They're traveling from Philadelphia all the way to California, trying to reunite with Devin's father. Talk about being fish out of water.
Oh, totally. And their journey isn't exactly, a walk in the park. According to the review, they arrived late, they missed their arranged escort, and now they're basically on their own trying to find a safe way to get to Crook Springs.
Crook Springs?
Yeah.
Right.
And the review really highlights just how dangerous and difficult travel was back then, especially for, a woman alone with a child.
And that's where Fort Bridger comes in, right? And Jim Bridger, I vaguely remember him from school, but what makes him such a key figure in all of this?
Jim Bridger. He was more than just a mountain man. He was like a legend of the West, almost a mythical figure. I mean, this guy, he knew the land like the back of his hand. He was instrumental in establishing Fort Bridger, it was like this vital trading post. It was a stopover for everyone heading west. But he was also a symbol of like the duality of the frontier, could guide you through it. But he also embodied its harshness. He'd seen it all. Yeah.
I'm starting to see why the review calls the American West, in this show, a wild card. Like, even with someone like Bridger around, there are no guarantees, no safety net. Makes you wonder how Sara and Devin are even going to survive, let alone thrive.
Yeah. And you have to remember, this was a time when so many different groups were all vying for control. You had the pioneers, indigenous communities, the military, the Mormons, all with their own agendas, their own ways of doing things. It's a recipe for conflict, for sure.
So it sounds like American Primeval is really diving deep into these gray areas of history. It's not just dates and battles. It's about the human stories behind it all.
Exactly.
And it sounds like it's doing it with a kind of brutal honesty. That might be uncomfortable for some viewers, but it's definitely going to make them think.
Yeah, I think that's important, to not shy away from the difficult parts of history.
For sure. And honestly, it sounds like they really nailed the setting, the atmosphere, the review. The review made it sound almost immersive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like you're right there in the thick of it, experiencing the beauty and the brutality of the West firsthand. I mean, just from reading this review, I'm definitely adding it to my watch list. I think it's going to be pretty powerful.
I agree. I'm really curious to see how they handle the different perspectives,
Yeah.
Whose story they ultimately choose to center. Like, who does the show ultimately portray as the real shapers of the West?
That's a great question. Who will write the history of this era? I guess we'll have to watch and find out.
Exactly. I think it's important to remember that history is never black and white.
Yeah.
And that the choices people made under such extreme circumstances, they can really ripple through time and shape the world we live in today.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It was really fascinating. And to all you listeners out there, be sure to check out American Primeval and let us know what you think.
Yeah, definitely. Would love to hear your thoughts. It's going to be a It's going to be a great one.
All right. Thanks again. Until next time.
Take care.